David. He's a 20-year-old student from Woking. Good morning to you, David.
Good morning,
Good
Julia.
morning. Well, your thing is you're in Woking, but of course you're not supposed to be in Woking because you're a final year student at the University of Birmingham, but you're not
Yeah,
there.
exactly. And university students have been ignored for far too long. I haven't returned to university in nearly a year. I haven't had any face-to-face teaching in nearly a year. I paid full rent since June for a property that I've never even moved into. The government has told students to stay at home. No one should be paying for a property that they legally aren't allowed to live in. It morally isn't
That's
acceptable.
a very good point. You are literally banned. It's a criminal offence for you to go there, and yet you're being forced to pay for it. Now, I suppose there's a difficulty is when it's accommodation which is organised by the university, or when it's private landlord accommodation. There may be, universities don't have any say over that, and the government as such. But I mean, the landlords need their money, fair enough. But the universities have still got their money. They're still paying their vice chancellors 300 grand a year, quite happily, while barely anyone's getting any proper teaching.
I think for landlords and for private accommodation, economic support from the government needs to be given. They've given support to most other sectors. They've given a furlough scheme, so they need to reimburse students for these rent by subsidising landlords in some ways. The finance website Save the Students has actually found out that nearly £1 billion has been wasted on unused accommodation this year.
It's extraordinary. And you say you'd love to be using it, but over £450 a month is your rent that you're paying out of your bank account, and presumably out of loans. So you're going to be paying interest on those loans for many years to come. You've also paid over £9,000 tuition fees this year and last year, and yet to all intents and purposes, you've got an open university course now rather than a University of Birmingham course, which would open university would cost you what? 3 grand instead of 9 grand a year?
Yeah, exactly. And many students are frustrated that they were sent back in September. They were promised face-to-face teaching. And when they returned to campus, they found that there wasn't any face-to-face teaching. So they were tricked to going back when they could have just completed it from home.
Yeah, indeed. And in terms of, I mean, just the money, I mean, would you rather not have the money back but be allowed to go back to university? We did see a whole spate of university sort of lockdowns because in the autumn, universities went back around October. And then, of course, we saw lots of testing, mass testing. What a surprise of a load of people living together, going to parties. What a surprise. It turned out that they were spreading COVID. But among each other. And I'm pretty sure, and I mean, unless I've completely missed it, and feel free to correct me, and I'm sure someone will, that I didn't see any reports of any students actually needing to even go to hospital, let alone horrifically dying, in their late teens, early 20s of COVID as a result of university students mixing. A whole bunch of young, healthy people getting COVID, having virtually no symptoms whatsoever. I have to say, I never really understood what the problem was.
I think there's a serious mental health crisis here. The TAB, the student news site, has reported that at least 39 ambulances were called last term for suicide and
Oh,
self-harm. The ONS have reported that 63% of university students' mental health decreased. Students are feeling isolated, stressed. There's still assignments, essays, and dissertations to complete under these conditions.
yeah, but you haven't got all the camaraderie that you would have, at least when you were back in the university, environment. At least even when lockdown, at least you had that camaraderie and the peers, as opposed to as a young man being basically locked in your bedroom at your parents' house, which is kind of not the deal you've signed up to. David, really appreciate you joining us. Thank you very much indeed. Again, we're not talking about people who are struggling desperately in a lot of the cases, but people who are just being treated unfairly, who've been ignored in this lockdown, who are paying huge sums of money to be at university for rent and just really not getting anything like what they've actually paid for, and just being totally left out of all the reimbursements. David from Woking, thank you so much for joining us. 8:46 is the time.